and try to enjoy the beauty of it. And the beauty of, you know, published work and language in this instance is we can read it and read it and read it and read it again. So thank you both so much. Hang around, don't go anywhere. We're gonna put everybody back up so we can have our like kind of closing thoughts. Thank you so much for taking the time and to talking to us about Toni Morrison's publics, Imani Perry and Edwidge Danticat. So as we transition to our next segment, which is on Toni Morrison and the humanities, I'm happy to introduce a couple of people who are familiar with Toni Morrison in personal ways. Farah Yasmin Griffin and Yolanda Pierce. Farah Jasmine Griffin is the founding chair of Columbia University's African and African American Diaspora Studies Department, and she is a the Williams B. Ransford Professor in English and Comparative Literature and African American Studies. She's the author, similarly, of many books, among those Who Set You Flowin', Beloved Sisters and Loving Friends, If You Can't Be Free, Be a Mystery in Search of Billie Holiday, Clawing at the Limits of Cool, and Harlem Nocturne, Women Artists and Progressive Politics During World War II. Welcome, Farah. And Yolanda Pierce. Yolanda is the professor and dean of Howard University's School of Divinity. In Howard's 150-year history, she's the first woman to hold this title. She's the author of Hell Without Fires, Slavery, Christianity, and the African American Spiritual Narrative. And go ahead and call your local bookstore right now to pre-order for its February 21st release date, My Grandmother's House, Black Women, Faith, and Stories We Inherit. Welcome, Yolanda, as well. So there is a clip that we didn't get to play with the other segment that we may talk about a little bit later, but right now I just want you guys to jump in to tell us anything that you're thinking about based on the other segments. You can start with a reading, or you can talk to us about Toni Morrison and the humanities, which of course bleeds into the other categories as well. So just jump right in.
Hi. So I'm just honored and excited to be here tonight. So one of my very first thoughts is about the fact that we are hosting this on the 1-year anniversary of Toni Morrison's ascension to the ancestors. And I feel a way about that. I'm really taking seriously what it means for us as Black women, this panel, but for all of the folks listening in, to think about Morrison as ancestor right now, right? To think about this question of her legacy, not just with the words that she's gifted to us, but to think about ancestral memory, because that's, for me, the beauty of what Morrison does, is that she has tapped into ancestral memory, and she has given us in her fiction what I always like to call truths. And I'm preparing in a divinity school classroom for this fall to teach Toni Morrison as theologian. And part of doing that work, part of getting people to understand why fiction can help us think about theological truths, is to sit with this idea of ancestral and historical memory. So I'm overwhelmed to sit here with you all, but I'm also overwhelmed to think about Toni Morrison, who in her work really tears the veil between the living and the dead down, and gives us a glimpse into the worlds of both the living and the dead, that she is now still available to us in this particular kind of way. And so for me, there's no way to talk about Toni Morrison without talking about her as a spiritual force to be reckoned with as writer and now as ancestor.
Thank you for the reminder.
So powerful. Dana, thank you so much for bringing us all together today. I knew I needed this, but I didn't know how much, so thank you. And it's funny, when you asked me to be on a panel about Toni Morrison and the humanities, I actually went to an essay that was a speech, and it turns out you opened up our evening with that speech, right? The one where she talks about values being taught in the university, because I think that she makes a profound statement about the humanities that shows their importance to us as human beings, not just in the academy. And I just want to share a couple of lines from that essay, because I think, and it also resonates with what Yolanda shared with us too, about, that she continues to point a way for us. So she says, the question of how to teach values becomes less fraught. How do we treat each other, the members of our own profession? How do we respond to professional and political cunning, to raw and ruthless ambition, to the plight of those outside our walls, right? So there it's specifically within the academy, what value, like we embody our values, she says, right? We don't just teach them, we embody them. And she closes that essay in a way that I think points to the urgency of the humanities for our time, even though, she's prescient all the time. This is like many years before this particular moment, but she closes it. She says, if the university does not take seriously and rigorously its role as the guardian of wider civic freedoms, as interrogator of more and more complex ethical problems, as servant and preserver of deep democratic practices, then some other regime or menage of regimes will do it for us, in spite of us, and without us. And I think that that's urgent whenever you hear it, but right now, I can't think of anything more urgent than that.
Absolutely.
So I mentioned before that there was a clip from the other segment that we didn't play. And then my graduate students tease me all the time that we quote unquote make magic, and we have this whole conversation about Black women magic not being Black women magic is like Black women's work. It doesn't just like magically happen. It's like, it didn't just grow either. I say that to say, without even having this conversation and talking about it, that puts us in a really good place to actually take a look at that. Catherine, if you can pull that quote, that clip from the Charter Day address at Howard, where she makes the point that I think Farah was just making. I think I'd be really interested in hearing just thoughts about this in relation to the current moment, and then to think about the ways that the humanities can lead us in this moment. I'm going to be quiet and let her talk.
And absolutely the children. Last, maintain at all costs silence. Forces interested in these solutions to national problems are not to be found in one political party or another, or one or another wing of a single political party. Democrats have no unsullied history of egalitarianism, nor are liberals free of agendas for domination. Republicans have housed abolitionists and white supremacists. Conservative, moderate, liberal, right, left, hard left, far right, religious, secular, socialist. We must not be blindsided by these Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola labels. Because the genius of racism and its succubus twin, fascism, that genius is that any political structure can host that virus.
I know we could go on like listening to that whole speech forever, but I just want to get your thoughts in relation to the points that both of you raised in your opening comments.